ready? Getting ready. Live. Okay, we're on the air. Yay. Where's this?
All beginnings are important.
Correct.
All endings are very nice too. You're very happy sometimes.
Yeah.
Harsha,
Kitavo, yes, that is our weekly portion indeed.
He says, cool, please send Rabbi Shlomi my regards.
Oh, you just have you?
You say something?
Mandy, we miss you.
This is Rabbi Shlomi speaking.
Yeah, today is a special day. Okay, I'll tell you the first reason why it's special. Tonight is my wedding anniversary. But that's not the real reason it's special. Today is the birthday of two very, very important rabbis in the Jewish history. One is the Baal Shem Tov, which is the founder of the Hasidic movement, and the other is the Alter Rebbe. They were born at the very same day, 48 years apart from each other.
So we will be your babysitter.
Ah, you'll be my
And
babysitter.
you and your wife, God, allow you to go
Yeah.
all night.
Yes. Yes, we will dance. We don't need to go anywhere. We can dance here. We can dance right here, Richard.
Baal Shem Tov is the founder of the Hasidic movement?
Correct.
What about the Zohar?
Zohar is Kabbalah. That's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not limited to Hasidut.
Correct. Yes, certainly.
How many years?
Our marriage? 12.
12.
12.
They go by fast?
What?
They go by very fast?
Yes, like 12 months. Okay, so today we have the weekly class together with some more action because of the special day. We're going to tell some stories and elaborate a little more about the significance of this lovely day. So let's begin with the class. Why is this thing appearing here? Ruben, why is this stripe down?
Not familiar with them.
What is F11? What is full screen? Isn't F11? Isn't F11 the full screen kind of thing?
I'm not familiar with this program, so I will not be able to tell you. Sorry.
Maybe I do. Not always top. Not always on the top. Is what I do here. Okay, never mind. It's not disturbing. Right? It's just a stripe.
What's the thing that disturbs you? Little?
The stripe here.
Yeah, the bar below.
Yeah.
Probably you can go to the bar itself and disable the showing of the bar.
Maybe.
Lock the taskbar.
No.
No?
No, pushing. Okay, meio guanxi. Never mind. Okay, so all beginnings are important. Yes, our parsha is Kitavo, the weekly portion. Where's Demery? I saw Demery here. Was she still upstairs?
She's upstairs.
Okay. So on Rosh Hashanah, we're getting ready to the Rosh Hashanah. From tonight, actually, is 12 days till until the beginning of the new year, until the end of this year and the beginning of the new one. And because it's 12 days, it goes every day by month. So actually, from tonight, there's 12 days to correct everything that was done in the past 12 months, a day a month. So we have to take special care in ourselves to make sure that we are aligned the way we want to be towards the next year. So anyway, there's a Hasidic thing where people say that you shouldn't sleep on Rosh Hashanah too much, because if you sleep, then your fortune will sleep the whole year. So there was this guy. What?
48 hours.
Yeah. No, not too much. You sleep at night, but not at day. No afternoon naps.
Same as Chinese. Chinese New Year Eve, we are kids, not allowed to sleep after midnight.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
You had your meal, so yeah.
Oh, by us, we're not.
We're all together.
We're all together. Anyway, so this story about Yankel, this guy who was fairly unlucky in his life, and then he went to sleep on Rosh Hashanah, and everybody said to him, "Why are you going to sleep? Your fortune will sleep through the whole year." So he said, "With a fortune like mine, it's better it will sleep, because everything I do comes out to be wrong. Anyway, Judaism admires beginnings. All beginnings are very important. The first day of the year, Rosh Hashanah, right? The first day of the month, Rosh Chodesh, right? And of course, the first moment when we open our eyes in the morning, we give thanks, we give gratitude to God. We say, Modeh ani lefanecha. So it's all about beginnings in Judaism. It's all about how we start. And the way you start something usually is the way it looks in the following stages. So when coming to speak about beginnings, we try to put it in our weekly portion. We have a lot of beginnings, so that's why this topic was chosen for today. This is a letter from the previous Rebbe. Read it, Samanani. You're disturbing. Thank you. A letter from the previous Rebbe. The main service of Rosh Hashanah is Kabbalat Ol. What is Kabbalat Ol? A Jewish concept which has no secular parallel. The concept is accepting the yoke of heaven. Kabbalat Ol Malchut Shamayim is in Hebrew. It is a way of acting that derives from our obligation to God, rather than out of love or fear to Him. This is why in Rosh Hashanah a person should be busy with reciting chapters of Psalms of Tehillim at all times, refrain from sleeping as much as possible, and avoid engaging in small talks or useless conversation, just like a servant who has no time to rest but has to service his master. So, on the day of Rosh Hashanah, we need to take special care on that point, the fact that we are the servants of God. And just like when you have somebody working for someone, they cannot just, relax because they have a duty. So Kabbalat Ol is like someone who has a duty, who has a mission to fulfill, who has a job to take care of. And as long as this is done, then you're not supposed to just waste your time over needless things or things that are needed, but could be pushed for later because of the holiness of this day. So let's look at the beginnings in the Torah. So we have inanimate, right? Domim, the inanimate things. So the first portion of your dough, you shall separate a loaf for a gift. When we make challah, when we make bread, we take a piece of that bread and we give it to the Kohen, to the priest, to the servants of God. So this is from inanimate, from the things that are objects that are around us. Then we also have from the plant. When you come into the land which the Lord your God gives you for an inheritance, and you possess it and settle in it, you shall take the first of all the fruits of the ground, which you will bring from the land which the Lord your God is giving you, and you shall put them into a basket, and go to the place which the Lord your God will choose to have His name dwell there. This is in the beginning of our weekly portion. This speaks about the Bikuim. This explains a little bit the fruits that are in front of you. So the Torah tells us, fruits grow. What do? You take the first fruits and you dedicate it to God. You bring it to the holy temple. You end up enjoying the same fruits, by the way. You will be consuming those fruits, but you will be consuming it in a friendly environment, in an environment of holiness. And of course, we know from the living as well, from the animals, you shall give over to the Lord whatever opens the womb. And every miscarriage that opens the womb of an animal, which will be yours, the males belong to the Lord. So the Torah says that when you have a flock, nowadays it's not so common that people have animals. They have maybe digital animals. That's a little more common, right? You remember the time when the Japanese invented that? What was that called? Tamaguchi? What was that called? Right? People had digital pets, right? So don't you recall? That was was that? Yeah, it's like a pet, right? Like you pet your head. So anyways, in ancient times, people had animals, and the first animal would be brought to the temple. So the question which we could derive from all the above, what is so important about the first thing? Wouldn't you wait for the second? Wouldn't you wait for, sometimes you better wait for the second chance. You do something the first time, you're not always successful. Sometimes on the next try, you could learn from the lesson of the past. If you want to bring a gift to God, why not wait till all the crops have grown and then pick the best ones, right? Or the most, the nicest one, the tastiest one, right? Why take the first? It doesn't matter if the first is nice, it's ugly, it's beautiful, it's big, it's small, you take the first. What's the...
For other purposes you might, but not for this one.
Right.
The first is the best, though.
What?
The first is the best.
The first is the best? Is it always so?
I mean, in Japan, it's always the first pick of cherries gets the most money.
Really?
I mean, yeah, if you go pick cherries in Michigan, and they're the best cherries, tasting cherries.
But not necessarily in all species. Maybe in a specific species. But I'm not a farmer or in agriculture, but somebody who has an orchard of oranges or tree of apples, not necessarily the first fruits to ripen are the best fruits, right? It's not.
For some trees, it's warranted. They are not
It's warranted that it's not the best ones, right? Hi, Demery. Good to see you. Well, there's so many chairs. Why is nobody?
No, I'm trying to scoot
You want to sit there next to this? We rearranged because of the celebration we have today. Yeah. Let's look at the family. Is it always the first child that's the best?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not always.
Maybe Richard is the first child in his family.
I'm the worst.
Yo, dear.
Okay, so what is the answer?
Yeah, we're getting to it. You know how I ask questions and then we get slowly to the answer, right? Okay, let's elaborate a little bit about the mitzvah that we were discussing in our portion. It's called Bikurim. Mitzvat Bikurim, Bikurim, bringing the fruits. The people of Israel were standing on just before entering the promised land, and Moses was giving them the last briefing before entering the country. Moses was not going with them. They all knew that Moses has to stay in the desert. That's where he passed away. He never entered the land. And that's why they listened to him with great dedication. They wanted to hear what he has to say. And he tells them, "Vayaki tavo el haaretz," when you will come to the land. "Ulekachtem kol bereshit kol pri ha'adama asher tavi me'artzachem," and you'll take from the first fruits that the land, that the soil will grow, and that those fruits you'll dedicate to God. You remember what we're saying? And that's it. So there were, of course, 7 species in Israel that are considered more important than others, right? Dates and grapes, right? And figs. And when the way it worked is when a farmer, or in ancient days everyone had trees, everyone was involved with agriculture one way or another, used to go out to the tree in the time when it blossoms, when it starts to bring fruits, to bear fruits, and used to tie a little rope, usually a red rope, just for have a recognition. I wonder with the red fruits, maybe they should have had a different color of rope, right? So they would see it. Anyway, usually it was a red rope, and you used to tie it and keep it on the tree. It's not yet ready, but it's the first ones. Make sure it's ready. Wait a few more weeks until it's ripened, until it's ready, and then you pick those fruits. When you pick all the fruits, that's why you mark those, right? You pick all the fruits, and those with the mark, those with the little sign, are those to be dedicated to the holy temple. And sorry, I didn't say about the human beings, which is I was just in Israel. We had my niece had a baby boy. My sister is already a grandmother of 3. So my niece had a baby boy, and it was a firstborn. So firstborn, you have to do the ceremony. Here, I'll tell you.
So your grandmother's a great grandmother already?
My grandmother is a great grandmother. Yeah. My grandmother has five generations. Yeah.
For her.
Yes. Thank God. Yes. My sister is a grandmother, and my sister has a
And
grandmother.
when do you be a grandfather? Okay.
Yeah. We're working on it. Yeah. Mushi, I'm working on it. It's okay? I'm on it. For originally the service was performed by the firstborns, but they sinned by worshiping the golden calf. They became disqualified. The Levites who had not committed idolatry were chosen in their stand. Sanctify to me every firstborn, every one that opens the womb among the children of Israel, among men and among animals. It is mine. Rather, he must acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the despised wife, and give him a double share in all that he possesses, because he, the firstborn son, is the first of his strength. Then he has the birthright entitlement. According to the Torah, the first child that is born...
It's 5 shekels.
No. You got it all wrong. No. I'll tell you what the 5 shekels is all about. We have the Holy Temple. With the Holy Temple, we have people who work there. We know them as Kohanim, priests. But it wasn't always like that. Initially, the people who work at the Holy Temple were firstborn. You were born first in your family, you're entitled to that. That's a special entitlement. Only after the golden calf, when the Jews sinned, and everybody sinned besides the tribe of Levi, right? The tribe of Levi. That's when God shifted all of the responsibility of the holy temple to be the servants of God, to work, to represent other people doing that divine service. He shifted it from the firstborn to the Levites. Ever since, when a firstborn is born, their father, their parents should approach a priest and take away that entitlement that exists on the baby. How do you do that? I was there. We were there, right, Mendy? We were there at the ceremony just a few weeks ago. We were in Israel. My niece, as I said, had a baby boy. So the Kohen, the priest comes, and the baby is brought on a tray.
On a tray?
Yeah, like not a tray, but you know, something comfortable enough for a baby. He couldn't care less. He was asleep throughout the whole ceremony. He's just 30 days old. Anyway, and the Kohen says, Pidyon haben. And the Kohen says to the father, he says, what would you like more? Would you like your baby or would you like 5 shekels? And he says, if you want 5 shekels, then I'll give you 5 shekels, you give me the baby. Or you want your baby, then you need to give me 5 shekels. So surely enough, in all the ceremonies that happened everywhere in recorded history, nobody ever chose the 5 shekels to date. I don't know. Crazy people out there, you don't know, right? So, yeah. So,
but who's the closest to do that? Otherwise, it could be Shmuel.
Well, Shmuel, right? That he was sanctified from birth, right? But not from pregnancy, right? That he was being designated to be. Yeah.
You say firstborn, you mean the Kohanim firstborn?
No. Every Israelites, the Kohanim are exempted from this ceremony. Only the Israelites are the ones. Correct. Correct. All the tribe of Levi.
Only first child.
That's what we're trying to find out. What's about that first boy? What is so important about the first?
If the woman had miscarriage,
No. Then no more. Then that's not considered.
does not mean the first child.
The first child, it means the first thing that comes out of her. So if it was a miscarriage, no more. Yeah.
We shouldn't tell anybody.
Yes. You shouldn't tell. I don't know why. I agree. Okay, let's talk about the Bikurim.
Maybe she was the first one.
This is a great
They are
story.
twin, right?
Yeah. But Mushi came out first. Yeah, she came out. She had 11 minutes before him. She came out.
She is the
No, this was for boys. This is boys. Pidyon Ben. Pidyon Ben is for boys, not for girls.
The fact that you're discussing that Rachel is not back on.
No, she's not. No, neither she is, nor my family. Even if my mother is a Levi or a Cohen, or her mother is Levi Cohen, then we're exempted from this. So then it's actually kind of a rare mitzvah, because of course the Jews are, everybody marries Kohanim, Leviim, so you have to have 2 generations back, no traces of anyone from the tribe of Levi in order to be entitled to this mitzvah, to do this pidyon ben. Okay, so this bikurim we said about the fruits. That was just a side note I forgot to say earlier. The fruits, you go out there, you see the first fruit. Again, first. It's all about the first. First baby, first fruit. What is this whole thing? What is behind this mitzvah? Here's what Maimonides says. Rambam explains. How should one separate the first fruits? A person descends to his field, sees a fig tree, a cluster of grapes, or a pomegranate tree that has budded, and ties them with a reed. He should say, these are the first fruits. They become designated as first fruits even though they are attached to the ground after they have been given that title, even though they have not ripened entirely. So they're still on the tree and they're clearly marked as first fruit. Look at what happens next. Everybody picks their first fruit and everybody goes to Jerusalem. How are the first fruits brought to Jerusalem? Look at this very interesting description.
Dance all the way.
What?
They dance all
They're dancing. All of the inhabitants of the towns in the original era gather in the central town of the original era. Right? Everybody comes downtown. So that they will not ascend to Jerusalem as individuals. For Proverbs teach, the glory of the king is among the multitude of people. An ox with his horn glazed with gold leads the procession. A crown of olive branches are placed on its head. Look at it. The ox get a special treatment. Maybe they get a massage as well. But they get a crown made out of olive trees on the head to publicize that the first fruits come from the 7 species for which Eretz Yisrael is praised. A flute plays before them until they arrive close to Jerusalem. They walk the entire way and proclaim, I rejoiced when it was told me, let us go to the house of God. So this was a big procession, a big procedure. Everybody were excited. What are you talking about? It's just a bunch of fruits being brought to Jerusalem. It doesn't sound, Judaism, we all have reasoning for everything, why and how, and you just got a bunch of fruits and you bring it to Jerusalem. And who enjoys the fruits? You. You actually get to eat your own fruits. Wouldn't it be nice if you stay home and eat your fruits? Just why is this whole procedure around? What is behind this mitzvah? What is God trying to tell us? What is He trying to teach us through that? While bringing the first fruits, there's a special text to be read. You need to say a text. And look at what the Torah tells us. Oh, okay, this is one of the reasons. But wait, where's that text? Wasn't the text quoted here? Okay. Akedat Yitzchak what is this all about? He says like this, fighting against amnesia, a person has always to remember that all they have comes from the Almighty. It is not our strength that brings over the success, rather it's God's blessing. This concept is very easy to be forgotten. Therefore, all of the above is practice to remind ourselves of God's grace. In other words, this whole procession, this whole process of coming and dancing, everybody basically states, this is not me. This is not about me. This is about God's blessing. Yeah, I could eat fruits at home. I could invite my friends and family and eat fruits. Why am I made to do all that? This is a reminder. This is showing me. This is teaching me. I'm not the center of the events here. Yeah, I'll get to eat the fruits eventually, but I'm not the center of the event. So Akedat Yitzchak, interesting interpretation. It's all about remembering.
Can you ask me a question?
Yes, please.
So in Kitab Hall, it talks about this. And Maimonides read it and he discerned or translated it. And we all agree now.
Yes. Yes, that was from Kitab Hall. And this is a quote from Kitab Hall. Here. This is what the text, what text is recited. Why don't you read it, Richard?
Well, that's Deuteronomy. I can't read that.
Yeah.
And you shall call out and say before the Lord your God, and Armenia, right?
Yeah.
They sought to destroy their forefathers. They went down to Egypt and sojourned there with a small number of people, and there he became a great, mighty, and numerous nation. And the Egyptians treated us cruelly and afflicted us. They imposed hard labor upon us. The Egyptians treated us cruelly and afflicted us. They imposed hard labor upon us. He brought us to this place, and He gave us this land, and land flowed milk and honey.
Honey.
That's Israel, milk and honey.
Milk and honey, yeah. So, you go into the Beit HaMikdash, to the Holy Temple, you bring those fruits, and you say a brief history about yourself. You say, I want you to know that I remember God. I remember that years ago, there was a guy named Laban, the Aramean, and he seek to destroy, right? He seek to destroy my father, my forefather, right? Laban was chasing after Jacob, and he demanded the women and the children, right? Jacob had to run away. He had 4 wives actually, Rachel, Leah, right? He had 12 children, and Laban wanted the kids. He wanted to educate them. He said, what is this whole Jewish nonsense of yours? They should be servants, they should work hard, they should be praised for their efforts. Shh, if you want to stay here, you need to be quiet. So, and the second thing you mentioned is the Exodus, going out of Egypt, right? And the Egyptians treated us cruelly and afflicted us, and God has saved us. And then finally, we reach that moment where we are in our land, in our promised land. And here, I bring the fruits to you, God. And the question is, why do we mention these 2 events? What does this have to do with our history? If we want to say events of our history, trust me, Marty, we could mention 500 events and we will run out of words. Al-Haaretz V'Al-Hamazon is a special blessing that's designated because we evaluate the fact we are on that soil. Not only that we have sustenance, that we have what to eat, but just like the text says, Al-Haaretz V'Al-Hamazon, right? This one speaks about our history. Why are these 2 occurrences mentioned in that brief speech? When you bring the bikurim, when you bring those fruits, you say these words, right? You say these words. Why do you say these words? What is so meaningful about these 2 events? About Laban chasing Jacob and nearly taking the children, and about our enslavement in Egypt. We had even worse things that went through our people. So the Rebbe explains a very interesting insight. That's Laban chasing Jacob and enslaving in Egypt. And the Rebbe explains like this. Since the purpose of Bikurim is to give gratitude to God for giving us this land and for letting us settle here permanently, that is why a person should mention occasions in history in which we were settled but still not achieved peace and tranquility. Quite the contrary, we were in danger of extermination. These were Aram and Egypt, and it is only to God's grace that we were spared. In other words, you compare what you have now with what you almost had. You know, people like to assess their situation and they like to remember. Many people like to think that, oh, it should have been much better, it could have been, I should have said it, I could have said it, I would have said it, right? But a lot of people, according to what Torah says, you should be thankful to where you are now because you were nearly exterminated. Yes, we settled. Yes, Jacob worked for Laban for 21 years. It seemed like everything was okay. He made a good fortune, he made a salary, but he was always in danger. The Jews were in Egypt for 210 years. You would imagine, Joseph was the king of Egypt. When they descend, everything was nice. They settled in Goshen. It's the nicest place of Egypt, right? It was like the French Riviera.
Laban was the father-in-law, right?
Laban was right.
21 years worked for Laban?
Yeah.
He worked for Schnorr wages?
Don't worry. No, he made off with a lot of money. Don't worry.
7 years and less, 7 years only.
The first 7 years, right?
Another 7
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
He was able to do the sheep, right?
Yeah. Right. He separated the sheep, right?
Smart guy.
Okay. So we find though that when the Jews went into the land of Israel, they only after 14 years they were commanded this mitzvah. Moses told them before they entered, but when was it practiced? Only 14 years later. So why do we wait for 14 years? So there's two answers. One is while there are miracles, we don't need reminders. And the second one, a Jew cannot truly be happy until everyone is settled. It took several years. The Jews came in, and you would think they're finally entering the promised land. Everything is okay. And now what? They're starting to find. I want to settle here. No, my grandmother lives next to this place. No, I have a lot of cattle. I like that place. No, you should live by the water because my children like to swim. You know how it is. It was a little country. There were not too many people, but we still managed to fight because, and there was still going, I have to this, that.
Were the tribes over there?
The tribes, and then, they said they had this destiny from God. They had, everyone has to settle where they had to settle. But it took a lot of time for people to settle. So until everyone were settled, we couldn't bring the fruits. Why? Because we couldn't give gratitude to God for finally being settled. In other words, even if those who settled after 1 year and they stayed there, it was their house, it was their lot, it was their place. If you know that you have someone else of your acquaintance, someone even not of your people that is not yet settled, then the joy is not complete. Then you cannot rejoice truly and say, thank you God for bringing me where I am. Yes, you should give gratitude, but that rejoicement only takes place when everyone are settled, when everybody is in their place, when everyone is safe. And the second,
before the conquest was finished.
Yes, it was. It took 14 years basically to get everything, the whole process end. The Kli Yakar brings the first answer, which is what we say. While there are miracles, we don't need reminders. The fear of amnesia, the fear of what we described earlier, that a person should constantly remember and credit what needs to be credited to God and not to himself, is only after the miracles are no longer present. But of course, throughout the years, they still had to fight over their land. There were still miracles taking place in front of their eyes, unfolding in front of their eyes. So that's why they didn't need those ceremonies in order to remember God, because there was no fear of forgetting God when seeing the miracles. But then again, we have an answer. What your army is asking, so why the first fruits? What's so important about the first ones? So let's look at the firstborn in the Torah. Reuben, I'm sorry that your name is here. It's not you, it's the other Reuben. Let's look. Richard, you said the firstborn is always better.
Yes.
Here are some examples of firstborn. Go to the left. The firstborn of Adam and Eve. The first baby to be ever born. Cain.
Perhaps conceived in Gan Eden.
Conceived in Gan Eden and born in Gan Eden. Cain,
Kind
the firstborn, what did he do? Killed his brother.
he's out.
He's out.
Yeah.
The firstborn of Abraham. The first child born of Abraham, Ishmael. Ishmael. Not so good, Muslims, ISIS,
You know.
YouTube. Don't look, YouTube. No, it's not me. Yeah. Ishmael. Ishmael, all the Muslims, all the Arabs, they relate to him. He himself was not really a great guy. The first child of Isaac, right? You said Abraham, the first child of Isaac. First child of Isaac. Esau, the best one? Not so much. Esau, a murderer, a rapist.
Why is that
He's,
so?
he's got his record full of not so nice things that he did. And the first child of Jacob, Reuben, he wasn't nasty, heavens forbid, but for sure he wasn't the most successful of his brothers.
He had a nice name.
He had a nice name.
Yeah.
Very nice name, Reuben.
I like that.
So, looking just at the brief history, we can see the firstborns are not actually the best in their families. From the worst to not the best, but for sure not the best in all these examples, right? First Adam, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, none of their children, the firstborns, were something to write home about. Why is it so? Why is the Torah still so concerned about the first ones? So we can say simply that the first thing is the one you like the most, right? The first project you did, the first work, the first job you had, the first time, your first teacher in school, in middle school, in high school, right? The first you remember the most, sometimes you appreciate the most. It's not the best on the long run, but it's the thing you remember the most. And that's what the Sefer Bachai explains, why the firstborn gets more than the others. A natural thing is that a father will be inclined to love his first child more than the other children. The reason could be since the child is my strength and the first of my might, or since the first child changes his status to become a father. Hence the tradition of double inheritance for the firstborn. According to the Jewish religion, the Jewish tradition, the firstborn gets a double portion. So for instance, if somebody has 5 children, after their passing, their assets are divided to 6, right? And the firstborn gets 2, and all the others get, the firstborn. Abechor, you didn't know? Are you a firstborn? No, you're not. Okay, that's why you didn't know. Yeah, Levana ברכה עם הכסף. מי הראשון? אלישבע? מי הראשון? יש לך אח? איפה הוא? בארץ גם? כן. תבדוק את החשבון בנק. קיבל כמה, לכן לא ידעת. אז, right? You know what is it called when a performer, when an actor the first time they perform, what is it called? Debut. Yeah.
The people in France say debut.
Yeah, debut. That's how it's called. Yeah. Right. Everybody remembers their first time they performed. Right. A lecturer or someone of public speaker, someone who was an artist. Everybody remembers, sometimes they read it. When's the first time you performed? When's the first? Somebody says, when I was 8 years old and my mother's birthday and I showed everybody I'm so talented. They don't remember the second and the third, correct. It's not the most successful, but it's the one they will never forget. Okay? So first time you do something, first time you're involved with something, first time you take initiative, you would always remember. It could be that it was successful, it could be it was not successful, but you will still not forget it. As much as you would like to forget it sometime, but you can never forget it, right? Sometimes you would say, sometimes you look at the pictures of yours, the way you look, and you say, those ugly glasses, how could I look like it? Right? You see that. Not like, like our friend Richard with those beautiful glasses. We used to have...
Rabbi, you're my favorite of all glasses.
Well, it's really nice. Your glasses are really nice, yes. Really? Okay. Should get to the same store. So, Chazal, our sages elaborate over the first love, right? The first connection that a husband has with his wife, right? The Talmud says, "En adam motzer korat ruach ela beishto rishona, lakol yesh tmura chutz mieshet neurim." Right? Everyone you could forget, but your first love you'll never forget. So this is something that affects you very greatly. right? Look at, that's the figs, right? Yeshayahu, from Yeshayahu, it says, and his glorious beauty shall be young fruit of inferior fig, which is on the head of the valley of fatness, as a fig that ripens before the summer, which if the seer sees it, he will swallow it while it is still in his hand. Would you imagine? This is something that Yeshaya, the prophet, says about the Jewish people, right? Just like a farmer gets overexcited, somebody, or it could be a computer scientist, Reuben, putting a code for the first time, and then the first time they compile, the first time the program runs, they will remember the input. Could have been an error, but they'll remember the input. It's the excitement. A farmer invested in a tree. It's not like nowadays. Nobody invests that much, right? We want to get everything rapid, instant noodles, instant pudding, instant that, right? The world it's not supposed to work like that. You have to work hard. When you work hard, you get results, right? But a farmer invested. He worked when it was hot. And he planted seeds and he's waiting for rain and then harvest, right? And finally the fruit is there. So he takes it while it's still there, swallows it. That's how God looks at his firstborn, of course, the Jewish people. That's why God tells us to bring him the first fruit. Why is the first fruit? That's the one I remember the most. When will I remember God the most? When I take the first fruit and I give it to God. God says, I don't need your fruits. Well, you're going to give me apples, you're going to give me grapes, cherries from Japan that cost $500 a kilo? Would that impress me more than rotten apples? It's not about the fruits, it's about you. What will you remember the most? What do you appreciate the most? What is something you'll never forget? The first experience you had. That I want to be involved in that. That I want to have to do with me. That is what God tells us. So the first is not always the best, but the first is what you'll never forget. So that's what Sefer HaChinuch says. And he says as follows, from the roots of this commandment is that God, may he be blessed, wanted to make us married to do a commandment with the beginning of his fruits, in order that all should know that everything is his, and that man has nothing in the world except that which God, may he be blessed, apportions to him in his kindness. And he will understand this in his seeing that after a man exerted himself many exertion and put himself through many troubles in his world, and has reached the time when it makes a fruit, and his first fruit is beloved to him, like the apple of his eye. Right? That's an expression. Kebavat aino. He immediately gives it to the Holy One, blessed be he, and empties his possessions of it and his properties to put into the possession of his Creator. So, giving that to God, again, that ceremony we described, you end up enjoying the fruits, but you enjoy it in Jerusalem under the terms of a celebration that has to do with God. So until here is the simple reasoning, the simple explanation for this mitzvah, which is what you remember the most. That's when you need to do with God, because you need to remind yourself, this is not me, it's about what God gave me. And that's how you make sure everything else follows the same path. So this is a story that happened several years ago. This is Rabbi Nehemiah, whoever visited Bangkok and visited the Chabad house in Bangkok, which is one of the biggest Chabad houses in Asia. Just to tell you that on a small Shabbat, when it's not very crowded, they have 500 people. Okay, yeah, that's like not very crowded. Chabad in Bangkok. That's Chabad. That's the rabbi in Chabad in Bangkok.
Oh, Bangkok?
Yeah, Bangkok, Thailand.
Rabbi Cantor?
No, that's Rabbi Wilhelm. Rabbi Cantor, they work together. Rabbi Wilhelm deals with the Israelis, the travelers. There's a lot of travelers over there, right? So this is a story in Rosh Hashanah. In Rosh Hashanah, listen to this. An Israeli fellow approaches Rabbi Wilhelm, the rabbi in the picture. And this is the Rosh Hashanah morning, right? Last night, a big meal. And this is the morning prayer. And the rabbi wakes up early. Like we said, we don't sleep much on Rosh Hashanah. The rabbi wakes up early. And there's a group of people also in shul. They are learning together. Before the davening, before the prayer, they're learning Torah. He gets a tap on his shoulder. And a young Israeli fellow approaches him. And he says, I'd like to speak to you for a few minutes. So he says, yes, what is it that you need? They go to the side. And he says, I'll tell you what, I'm not observant. And I actually have a flight to Nepal in a few hours. And I need to go to the airport. But I promised my mother that on Rosh Hashanah I'll hear the shofar blowing. I'll hear the shofar sound. I'd like you to do me a favor. And I'd like you to blow the shofar for me before I leave. Because I really have to get going because my flight is coming up. So the rabbi was, of course, in a dilemma. On one hand, you have someone who appreciates the mitzvah, wants to hear shofar. But on the other hand, he's going to blow the shofar, and what's the next thing he'll do? He'll run to catch the flight, which is not really the way you practice Rosh Hashanah. It's not really what you're supposed to do on that holy day, the special day. So the rabbi says like this: I am going to blow the shofar for you, and you are a mature person and an adult, and you could make your own decisions in life. I'm not the one to decide for you. But I have a small request from you. I want you to know today is Rosh Hashanah. Today is the first day of the year. Today a new year begins. This morning when we are standing now, a new year starts in this world. I want you to stay with us for the holiday. And I, says the rabbi, will take care of your ticket. I know the airline. The rabbi speaks Thai, by the way. He speaks fluent Thai. And he says, I know the airline. I know the rabbi in Nepal. I know who you can pay $20 to change an unchangeable ticket. You know, this is something you don't know, but every ticket has rules. But once you come with cash, sometimes the rules are being bent, you know. So I could change an unchangeable ticket. We can make something work. Do me a favor. You're just on a trip. It's not like you'll travel 2 days less in Nepal. Nothing is going to happen. So the guy says, he's thinking to himself, he says, you'll take care of my ticket? He says, I'll promise you I'll take care of your ticket. You won't lose a penny. Okay, I'm staying. He says, I'm staying. Okay, I'm staying. So he decided to stay, and he stayed with them in the holiday. Now, as I said, normal Shabbat, 500. Rosh Hashanah, they probably had 1,000 people. The rabbi, this episode ended. He says to the guy, stay. He stayed. 4 minutes later, he didn't remember this guy. And he probably didn't think of him anymore because everybody were busy, right, running around. He stayed. And after 2 months, he gets an email in his inbox, and he says to him, this young fellow, he says to the rabbi, I want you to know, I feel obligated to tell you that I stayed like I promised you. I stayed in Bangkok for that day. I was in shul. Of course, there were a lot of people. The rabbi didn't necessarily see him. And I stayed the whole holiday, Rosh Hashanah. And of course, he knew that, he took care of his ticket. One of his secretaries took care of the ticket. It wasn't a big deal. I think the whole expense was $100. Nothing major. But there's something you don't know, he says. After that Rosh Hashanah, the next Shabbat came around, and I said to myself, you know what? I started the year in the right foot. I started the year by not flying, not traveling on Shabbat. I could also stay for another Shabbat. He said, I don't want to ruin. I started the year the right way. So he said the next Shabbat came around and I did not travel. Then the next Shabbat came around. I said, oh, it's already 2 Shabbats that I'm not traveling. I just started the new year. I might as well try to refrain from travel. He said, I made changes to my itinerary. I traveled on Tuesday. I traveled on Wednesday. I traveled on Sunday. But on Shabbat, I didn't travel. He says, already 8 Shabbatot from the beginning of the year that I don't travel on Shabbat. And I felt I want to tell you that. Why? Because I started the year in the right foot. So every time when I want to do a travel or when I do something that's not allowed, I say, why should I ruin it? I started the year. התחלתי ברגל ימין, למה לקלקל? Right? I started the right way. So I should just continue. In other words, you're not making much of an effort. You're just continuing the effort that was already done. Right? The more you progress, the more you achieve a higher level. You say, such a pity, right? I've already made it so far. I might as well try a little harder. And you know what? When you try hard enough, you realize that it's doable, it's feasible, it's normal. A lot of people keep Shabbat. A lot of people don't travel on Shabbat. That's something that you could do nowadays. So that's the email and the rabbi, of course, shared it with his colleagues, with himself and other people. So according to what Kabbalah brings, and we said earlier, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the beginning sets the tone for what follows, right? The beginning is like a seed that contains everything that comes out of that seed. That's the beginning, right? And that's why it's so important to start right. That's why you give the first fruit to God. What is the first fruit? The first fruit is the beginning. And you say, that's dedicated to God. So if that's dedicated to God, I'll sure continue along the same line. And and I'll do the best from all the circumstances that I have. And that's what the Arizal says. We spoke about your older brother. So the Arizal said, You know there's a mitzvah, by the way, you should honor your parents, right? That's the fifth one, right? Kabed et avicha v'et imecha, right? You should honor your parents. So the Torah says, why does it say kabed et avicha v'et imecha? You should honor your father and your mother. You could have said you should honor your father. I mean, in Hebrew it's the father and the mother. What's the? So in Torah it's explained that you also should have respect to your older brother, right? Not only to your parents, you should also have respect to your older brother, right? I mean, in some cases when you're young, you should have respect to your older brother. Otherwise, he's going to smack you. But that's also a different reasoning that I meant from a perspective that he won't smack you. Then you should have. So here's what the Arizal explains about it. You should know a secret, that there is no creature in the world that does not take from the spirit of the father something. And the first child takes some, while the second child takes from the first child, and so on with the third and the fourth, etc. So you should know, the Arizal explained, this is from Arizal, right? That the first child takes from something from the father, and that's something that's taken from the father is also going on. That's why you need to have respect to your older brother. And this is what the Rebbe explains about what's so important on Rosh Hashanah. I'll read it quickly. It's a little, I couldn't cut it. I was trying to cut it, but it was so nicely that I didn't want to cut it. It is explained in various sources in Hasidus that Rosh Hashanah is called the head of the year rather than the beginning of the year. Right? In Hebrew, Rosh Hashanah, lo Tchilat Hashanah. Rosh, the head of the year. Because its relation to the other days of the year parallels to the relation of the head to the body and other organs. Just as the vitality of all the organs is subsumed in the head, and this then finds overt expression in the fact that the vitality of every particular organ is drawn down from the head. So too Rosh Hashanah comprises within itself the vitality of all the days of the forthcoming year. Would you imagine 48 hours where you cram everything that will take place in the coming year? They are all subsumed in it in a potential form, and eventually their vitality branches out into individual days and become apparent. It may be assumed that this is one of the reasons why we have been earnestly urged to be exceedingly vigilant in cherishing time on Rosh Hashanah, for the hours and minutes of these days are comprehensive, they are superior to those of the rest of the year, not only in quantity but also in quality, like the tissue of the brain in comparison with the other physical organs is understood from the analogy between the head and the organs of the body. When is a person healthy? When the vitality centered in his head is intact and channeled to each organ according to its nature. The same is true of the avodah of Rosh Hashanah. So why is it the head of the year? Because it actually includes everything that will come in the coming year. Why is it so important on Rosh Hashanah to pray, to dedicate time to God, to come hear the shofar? Because it's not only about this day, it's about how the whole year will look from that day onwards. So now I'd like to get to something about the special day. Nani, I need you to be quiet. So today, like we said earlier, is Chai Elul. Chai Elul is the birthday of the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov. I don't have a picture of the Baal Shem Tov, but there's surely a picture of the Alter Rebbe. Me too. Here, I'll tell you a picture of the Alter.
See you on TV.
Yeah, I'm actually on live TV.
If people are watching us,
I don't know. I'll check later who's watching and who's not.
Tape on the little camera there.
Yeah. Okay, here's a picture of the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe, right, a lot of pictures of his. Anyway, now you know how he looks like. We don't have a picture of the Baal Shem Tov. And this was today, 273 years ago, the Alter Rebbe was born. And 48 years earlier, the Baal Shem Tov was born, okay? And the Baal Shem Tov never celebrated his birthday. He never told anyone when was his birthday, besides that specific time when the Alter Rebbe was born. And he said, I want you to know, there is such a thing called reincarnation, Gilgul Neshamot, where a soul that was in this world and has to ascend and then is being sent again to this world. And we are all souls of reincarnation. We are all of our souls had visited this world before, right? That's how deja vu is explained. Sometimes you feel like you've been to that place, although you've never been to that place. Sometimes you feel like you spoke to that person, although it's the first time you ever meet that person. Not to everyone it happens, not all the time, but there are like little hints of what's called in French deja vu, right? Deja already, deja. So everyone has their soul already several times, right? The soul comes to this world. The story of Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya, we've mentioned that in the past. Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya was a sage, was a rabbi, initially a rabbi who decided he forsakes all of religion, and he was a person who wasn't good to begin with, and he was addicted to women. He liked to visit a lot of women, and etc., etc. And Elazar ben Dodaya was in a very bad situation in his spiritual life, and then there was a case. I don't want to elaborate. My kids are still here, and Mushi is watching me and listening. I'm not going to say the story. Anyway, so on one moment he decided that he heard that there's no more hope for him. There's no more hope for him. So he put his head between his knees and he started crying. And he cried so much until he died. He died from sorrow, from agony. And a heavenly voice came out and said, Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya, Rabbi Elazar ben Dodaya, wasn't near a rabbi. You are praiseworthy, for you are going to enter heaven. Right? And then Rabbi Yehuda Nasi cried and said, Yesh koneh olamo b'sha'ah achat. A person could change all of his life in 1 hour. Right? He had so much regret for where he was that he couldn't contain it. And he died from agony, from sorrow. And that was his repentance. So our sages are asking what kind of heaven he has. According to what we learned from Torah, the fruits of the labor you do here, you will enjoy those fruits in the world to come, right? If you are a kind person, if you do kind things, if you do good things, then in the world to come you will enjoy the fruits of your hard work. But this fellow who was far from being kind, far from being honest, far from being doing good things, what kind of heaven he's going to? What type of, what fruits, what could he enjoy? What did he do in this world that could make him yield something in the world above? So the Alter Rebbe explains that his soul actually belonged to Yochanan Kohen Gadol. Yochanan Kohen Gadol was a high priest in the Holy Temple, and he was 80 years a Kohen Gadol, a high priest, serving God, representing the Jewish people, entering the Holy of Holies, high priest. And then, just before he died, he decided to leave Judaism, and he became Tzduki. Tzduki was a cult that was in those days, that was kind of a heresy, kind of denying the presence of God. So all of his work, everything he did with full honesty throughout his lifetime, was all pending, because his last statements or his last period of life was negative, was wrong. So his soul actually had to come to this world and had to correct one single moment. That single moment where he deviated, that single moment of Yochanan Kohen Gadol, where the high priest changed his mind and left religion, that's the little thing that missed that soul. That's why the soul went and lived the same amount of years with Elazar ben Dodaya, just for this little moment to be fixed, to be corrected, to close the circle, and then the soul went back up and finished its role in this world. Anyway, the Baal Shem Tov did a birthday party on his 48th birthday, and he told everyone, you should know everybody's soul have been here before. But there's one soul that came down to this world today. And this is a brand new soul, a fresh soul that never was in this world. A pure soul, a whole soul. And that was the soul of the Alter Rebbe. And on the 48th birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, the Alter Rebbe was born. What did the Alter Rebbe bring? The Alter Rebbe brought to this world. The Baal Shem Tov brought Hasidism, right? Hasidic Jews, they're happy. Just Google Hasidic. You'll see people dancing. You'll see people. Hasidic is all about, right? Joy, serving God with joy, right? Before Hasidic movement, it was all about fear. Richard likes to, all fearful and, God is going to punish me. God doesn't like me. God is going to do.
He's already punished me quite a bit.
What? No, he doesn't punish. God loves us. Never punishes us. We punish ourselves sometimes, but with nothing to do with him. But he loves us and bestows love upon us. Anyway, Hasidism is about not necessarily admiring the intelligence. Of course, Jews are smart, and we know we're innovative, but Hasidism is about your heart, not your intellect. Yeah, you should know, you should understand, But the question is, what lies within you? Who are you? Who are you? What are you? Your heart. When you dedicate it to God, even if you're not the most knowledgeable person of everyone, even if you're not brought up this way or that way, but if you dedicate your heart to God, God appreciates that. And He appreciates that much more than people who study Torah the whole day, but their heart is closed, their heart is sealed, locked. You cannot gain entrance to their heart. So Baal Shem Tov brought this novelty, and the Alter Rebbe, who came, as I said, 48 years later, made the synchronization between the heart and the mind. And he says, yes, you should love God. How should you love God? You should learn about God. You should know God. You should understand God, and then you love Him. You should understand what you're doing, and that understanding will not block your heart, but it will open your heart. Because from when you understand something and you realize it's good for you, then you start having emotions to it. Then you start connecting to it. And when do you really possess it? When you act, right? It's about knowing, it's about feeling, and then it's about doing. Because when you do something, then that is an evidence that something is who you are, and that's a part of your life, of your reality. There's a story about the Baal Shem Tov. You know, there's many stories of the Baal Shem Tov. The story about Shem Tov, this was Motzei Shabbat, Motzei Shabbos, after Shabbat, and the Baal Shem Tov was sitting in a synagogue. Shabbat just ended several minutes before that, and a woman bursts into the door, and she says, I need help. What happens? She says, I'm a widow, I don't have, my husband died, and I'm marrying off my daughter tomorrow, and we need to pay the expenses, and I thought I'll manage to get a loan, I'll manage to get someone promised a gift, and she says, the wedding is tomorrow, and I don't have money to take care of the wedding, and my daughter, she's waiting to get married. She found someone. They're planning on getting married, but she doesn't know that. But we don't really have where to take the wedding, the money for everything. So the Baal Shem Tov said to his disciples, there were a group of students, and he says to this woman, how much do you need? So she said an amount. She said, a calculation, how much she needs for the hairdresser, I don't know if they had hairdresser there, but anyway, the wedding gifts and the food, and right? So she said an amount. So the Baal Shem Tov said, I'd like to ask everyone in this room to reach out to your pockets and get all the money you have. So everybody reached out to their pockets and put all the money on the table. And lo and behold, it was exactly the amount of money that the lady had requested. He gave her the money and she went out. That's the story of the Baal Shem Tov. Now, we know a lot of stories of the Baal Shem Tov, a lot of miracles, right? What is the miracle here? Okay, so one would say, what is the miracle? She came in, she said an amount, it was right there. Another miracle, it was after Shabbat. Nobody had money in their pockets, right? They put their hands in their pocket and money came out of nowhere. It was Shabbat. Nobody had, you don't walk around with a wallet on Shabbat, right? But one said, you know what is the biggest miracle of the story? Everybody knew they didn't have money in their pockets, but they still reached out to their pockets. The Rebbe said, the Baal Shem Tov said, reach out to your pocket, take all the money you have in your pocket and put it on the table. What money? What are you talking about? It's Shabbat. Shabbat just ended 10 minutes ago. Who's the money? We're still in shul, right? Shabbat ended. You're allowed to touch money. When did you have an opportunity? We stayed here from Shabbat. The miracle was that they all reached out their hands. Because what the Baal Shem Tov did, and that's the model. He said, or he did, it's not about who I am, the Rebbe, the leader, the mentor. It's about who you are. It's about changing our lives, not only his. It's not about, we recognize that there's a figure, there's a holy person, there's a righteous person, and we relate to him, and we like to be in touch with him. But the Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov the Hasidic movement started with, it's not a sole responsibility of the leader, of the righteous person. It's up to you to do that, to complete the work, to do your work, to do your share. So the big miracle was that they actually reached out their hand to their pockets, right? With the Alter Rebbe, we have this novelty that one of the things that the Alter Rebbe introduced was, of course, in the book of Tanya, was the effort, right? We spoke about it briefly earlier. People are looking for effortless, right? People want everything to be click a button and everything happens instant, right? You don't have to work hard. You have electric screwdrivers, right? Yesterday I built this table with no electric screwdriver. My hand is going crazy. Yeah, but electric screwdriver, and you have somebody a solution for every problem, right? But the Alter Rebbe brought the other way around. He said no. He said if you don't work hard, then it's not real, right? He says if you get something, easy come, easy go, right? You get something, it's too easy. I'm not going into it. This is not what I need to do. If it's hard for you, that means that it's real. That means that it's serious. So the Alter Rebbe says, yeah, there are people who worship God, who serve God, but it's natural for them. They don't have evil inclination, and they're kind of focused. Some people are very oriented in study. They know their books, and they like studying. They enjoy this whole concept of Judaism. And for them, it's the easiest thing in the world. Of course, we give them credit for what they do. What about us? What about the regular people? For us, it's an effort. It's a difficulty. It's hard to wake up in the morning and late tefillin. It's hard to go to shul on a Monday to hear the shofar when it's a work day, when it's a business day, when it's a school day. But the Alter Rebbe says, because it's difficult, because you have to put an effort, that's what makes it real. That's what makes it genuine. Because this is what God wants from you. God doesn't want you to have an effortless life. Yeah, sure, if the world would be a different world, right? If bad and good were not so involved with each other, right? If God would create it. But the way God crafted the world, it's actually that He appreciates the effort. I remember that the subject I liked the most in high school was physics, right? Ruben, I never mentioned that to you. Physics, math and physics, right? Specifically, why physics, or math for that matter, right? Because usually when you have a history test or literature test, you have the question and the answer. If you don't know the answer, forget it. It's not going to work. That's it. 0. One big 0. F. A big F on your test. But math and physics, sometimes you do a calculation and you don't get to the right answer. Right? Sometimes you miss one, you forget the minus, you don't double, you don't divide. But you have the whole path. You put the formula right. You read the question right, you put the formula right, you put the numbers right. But then it's a long calculation. You could have missed one. So sometimes you get a physics question or a math question and you get an A on the test, even though you didn't make it to the right result, right? Because the mistake was all the way somewhere. You forgot a little detail, but the subject, you get rewarded for the road you did, for the path you took, for the way you've done. Not only the final bottom line. Not everything in life is about the bottom line, right? Not everything in life is a yes or no question. Yeah, there are yes or no questions. I'm not saying there aren't, but the gray area is much, much wider than the black and the white. And that's when Hasidism walks in, and that's what the Alter Rebbe says. It's hard for you. You put an effort that's meaningful. And the more effort you put, the more real it is. And the more meaningful it is in your life. So come a day like Chai Elu, like a day like today, where we celebrate their birthday, the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, the birthday of Alter Rebbe, and we say, people tell me, I called someone to invite him for Rosh Hashanah yesterday. And he says, well, of course you're the rabbi and you go to Rosh Hashanah. He says, what do you think? I got a wife with 2 kids and I have to teach English. And it's not, we used to make a lot more money, not in Taipei. We used to make a lot more money, and now the prices increase, and I can't take time off, and my boss hates me, and I can't leave the work when I want. I said, but you need to come for Rosh Hashanah just to hear the shofar. It's a big mitzvah. Yeah, but it's difficult. He said, if it was a day off, I would have come. He said, it wasn't. I said, what do you mean if it was a day off? Because it's not a day off. That's why you need to come. That's what the effort is all about. That's what it's meaningful. Yeah, when you do things when they're easy, when it's not easy, what do? Right? You stop doing? Is this how life works? It's not like that, right? In other fields, it's not like that. Especially in this field. When it's effort, when it's difficult for you, when you have to invest, that means that it's serious. That means that it's real, it's genuine. And that's meaningful not only in God's eyes, but also in your eyes. Because when you work hard on something and you achieve it, it's much more satisfying than if it would have come just like that, right? It would have come just so easily. So this is one of the things. Another story I wanted to tell you about is about the prince, right? The prince. The story with there was this king who had a son, right? King Quinn had a son. The prince. He was very intelligent, very smart. Was brought up in the palace, right? Very educated. And one day something happened to him, and he decided that he is a chicken. Do you know that story? Decided he's a chicken. He decided he's a chicken. He went outside the palace, and he went to what is it called? The chicken hen? What is it called? The
Chicken, is he a kosher chicken? Or
no, where the chickens go around. Lul,
chicken coop.
Coop.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
C-O-O-P.
Oh, the chicken coop. And the butlers are running after him. They're usually serving him his steak, and he's not. He doesn't want. He started eating seeds from the floor, and he took off his clothes, and he started. He decided it's a chicken, and the king went crazy. They thought he was joking around, but a day goes by, another day, a week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and the prince, the famous prince, the nice-looking, very smart, intelligent prince, is now a chicken. He thinks he's a chicken. He's in the coop, no clothes, running around, doing like this, eating seeds. The king brings all the doctors, psychiatrists, shrinks, prescribing medicine. Nothing helps. Nothing helps. The guy is a chicken. It's not going to help. And the king puts out a big publication. Says, whoever cures my son gets half of the royal treasure. Just cure my son. Just do something, right? Whoever has an idea to come up with, people line up. People say, try to make him eat that. Try to do something in his sleep. Nothing helped. Walks into the palace, a fellow, and he says, I think I can help you. And I don't want to get any money for that. But I want, of course he was Jewish. What do you And
you bring a wolf in there.
and he says, but on one condition, you are not going to intervene or to interfere me with my work. I will cure your son, and you have my word for it. But you are not going to interfere. You will sit and see what happens, and you will not say one single word, not to the good or to the bad. So they say, okay, they agree, no choice. You don't know this crazy guy. What is he? But no choice. Everybody tried. So the guy comes into the palace and walks in, runs into the chicken coop, and takes out his clothes and started eating seeds from the floor, and and started doing the voice, the sounds of a chicken. So the queen says to the king, look at that, we had one, now we got two. He says, go stop him. No, we promise we're not doing anything. Anyway, so he comes close to the prince like a chicken, right? And he says, he's taking the seeds, and he says, hello? And he says, hello? He said, and the prince says, I'm a chicken. That's what he said. For the past few months, I'm a chicken. So the guy says, I'm a chicken too. It's lovely seeing you. And he says, he's taking some seeds, he's eating some seeds, and they're socializing chicken way, right? I'm a chicken, I'm a chicken, yeah, I'm a chicken, yeah, I'm a chicken. And then, he befriends the prince, he befriends the chicken fellow. And a day passes by, a few days passes by, and the new guy says to the prince, he says, where I come from, the chickens, they don't eat only seeds. They eat some, chicken and beef. They eat some, really? Yeah. But I'm a chicken too, he says. Yeah, but where I come from, in my city, we eat not only seeds, we'll try to work something out. They'll bring us. So he gives a hint to the servants. They run with some trays. And, a few weeks passes by, and he says, I remember that when we used to visit my family, the chickens, chicken, they were wearing clothes. Are you kidding me? Chicken with clothes? Yeah, I'm telling you, they were chickens, but they were wearing clothes. Are you serious? I'm dead serious. They're chicken. Yeah. He says, I'm a chicken too. I'll show you. I can wear clothes. He starts wearing clothes. And then he says, we don't really have to go like this all the time, because in America, there's chickens, they go like straight. You serious? I'm serious. Yeah, they go straight. They're chicken. I'm a chicken. Yeah, I'm a chicken too. Yeah, we're all chickens, but they're going straight. Anyway, one step after the other, he persuades the prince to go back, wear his clothes, eat normal food, speak the normal language, right? And act like a person. Although he continues saying to him that he's a chicken and he's a chicken too. And he says, yeah, but you don't have to say, everybody knows you're a chicken. You don't have to say that all the time, right? He says, well, we all know you're a chicken. You stop saying that, right? Stop making those sounds. Yeah, we know you're a chicken, but you don't really have to make those sounds to make... Anyway, that's the story. That's the analogy that's brought. And of course, we could look at it, the story, various ways, right? What could we derive from that story? I don't know if it happened ever, but probably the guy was Jewish. But that's the only detail I could tell you in the story that might be true. But would you? What?
I have to go. I'm a chicken sandwich away from me. I have to go.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Are you a chicken? I'm a chicken. So, of course, you would imagine, a person who thinks they're a chicken and acts like a chicken and does everything to be a chicken, how much more we know God has blessed us. Just like we said, firstborn, first right. We are the children of God, and God is proud of us. How much we could achieve, how much we could accomplish. It's only our silly thinking that we are not capable. That we are just like this guy who thinks he's a chicken. Sometimes you think you're a chicken. You hear in the Torah class that you should eat kosher, that you should, and you say, oh yeah, but if I wasn't a chicken, maybe I would do that. But the real life is that you're not a chicken, I'm not a chicken. We are blessed by God, and we should take that into consideration. Now, 12 years from today, a new year begins, and a new year is an opportunity to start anew, to start fresh. So even if the year before things were not doing so well, and what I wanted to accomplish I haven't accomplished, and I've done things maybe even counterproductive sometimes, but a new year starts. And a new year starts, just like we said, the beginning is the most important part. So I urge you to do something about it and to come to hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is on Monday and Tuesday. It takes about 5 minutes to blow the shofar, so it doesn't matter if you work or you're studying. You can find 5 minutes during the day to come and hear the shofar. Of course, no, this is daytime activity. When it's difficult in the evening, that's not a problem. Monday and Tuesday. The first Sunday night is just a dinner. Between me and you, it's nothing but a dinner. Okay? No significance whatsoever of this dinner. Eat it here, eat it there. You go to this event, that event, regardless. But the shofar, the prayer, the repentance, this is what Rosh Hashanah is about. Dinners, yeah, you could have dinner. It doesn't matter. I mean, I'd rather you have dinner with us because it's kosher, right? But regardless, that's not what I'm preaching for. What I'm saying is, Rosh Hashanah, you hear the shofar, you say psalms, you say the prayers, you connect to God, you start the year the right way. And when you start it the right way, it would also continue the right way. So that's pretty much sums up what we had for today. So this is about the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, and that's it. I'll cut the thing here. And we'll close. Any questions somebody has?